Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, January 29th, 2026. Time marching on, creeping on. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it's going a mile a minute. Sometimes it's just crawling. And I guess if you are counting down, tell you what, if you're counting down the days to a partial government shutdown, it's flying. We're about 2 days from that. Today and tomorrow are the only days funded under the current continuing resolution. Part of the government has, in fact, received its funding already, the legislative branch, and I don't know, one or two other departments possibly. I haven't checked lately, but they're depending, of course, on pushing through a minibus of some, I think just 6 or so is what the Republicans want. 6 Democrats looking for 5 to eliminate the Department of Homeland Security and do that one separately, which I guess means that there are more appropriations bills already passed than I was accounting for, because there should be 12. We'll check in on that, but we have 2 days left on that, and no indication that they're going to get any of that done. So I anticipate, I guess, at least a weekend shutdown and perhaps some sort of a continuing resolution in the meantime. But if you're counting down, let's say, the days until Donald Trump is no longer president, well, that might take a little while longer. We're still 1,000 plus out on that. But as we say, time is marching on, and that's good news. And what can I tell you? It's just under 3 years. You know that because January 20th has just passed. Where's my numbers here? 1,087 days remaining in Trump's legal term of office. Anyway, we'll see whether he, makes it to the end of that. Any number of things could intervene on that front, not the least of which is his overnight insanity posting, which may, see him removed via the 25th Amendment, or may just see him drop dead for lack of sleep. Any number of things that can go wrong with that. But so 1,000 days, and then, of course, if he decides I should be in office for life, well, ordinarily that's a bad thing. But again, he may end up being in office for life anyway, and without interrupting our regular quadrennial cycle, if you know what I mean. All right. Well, there's plenty going on, and it's going on everywhere. We got lots to catch up on. There's FBI activity in Georgia, and I would say, well, I was going to say no one knows why. Everyone knows what they're saying they're doing there. But when you get right down to it, no one knows why. They know why they say they're there. I'm not sure they understand exactly why they're there. It's a weird fishing expedition. Also odd to do in Atlanta. I don't know how the fishing is in Atlanta. I'm sure there's some inland fishing of some kind, and people could tell me about it. Greg Dworkin is here. What's an appropriate... oh, gosh, I don't know. Well, at any rate, I think maybe the hijinks. It's short enough. Greg's not up to the hijinks. He's watching people who have, although honestly, if you saw the video feed that we actually do have going one way, hijinks is the appropriate thing. Greg playing with the video effects on Zoom. I got to get a camera set up here so we can do the same. And we'll at least share some of that with you at some point. In an after school special. Good morning, Greg. How are you doing?
Good morning. We're doing just fine.
Well, good.
We're at 7 degrees here, so It's like 35 degrees warmer than Minnesota, maybe 135 degrees warmer than Minnesota. Mm-hmm. But we're doing okay.
Okay.
I have a video to play for you at the very, very top of the list. I have a video
to play for you.
Oh, good.
That's really what's happening here. All right, let me get it. Don't start yet. Okay, there we go.
Don't start with me.
Yeah, right.
Don't start. So The deal is, this is something that took place in Alabama.
It's one of
those Republican goes to his district to speak to his constituents, and his constituents are not happy.
Okay.
And you have to keep in mind, I think this is Baldwin County in Alabama. Yeah, I could have gotten the county wrong, but this is an 80-20 Trump county.
Okay.
Slight exaggeration.
Watch out.
78, 20, something like that. So highly, highly aggressively bright red on the political map.
Okay.
And
on their necks.
Let's play the video, and hopefully you can hear about a little bit what's going on.
Representative Barry Moore, about whom I know nothing. All right, let's see. Here we go.
Why are people not getting due process? Why are immigrants not getting due process?
So due process for a citizen and a non-citizen are different.
False. False.
It's true that it's false.
The 5th and 14th Amendments allow for it. The Supreme Court has backed it many times. Shame.
This is not going well, so he's backing off.
Yeah, he's walking away. He's checking the microphone. Is this thing on? He's being shouted down in his own...
And as he leaves, that guy who is citing the amendments that say that he's a liar yells out, "Bye, Felicia."
I can roll that. There's another 30 seconds of this, but it was getting noisy. But let's see. He's leaving. Shame. He's just leaving.
Bye, Felicia.
Not just bye, Felicia, but bye, Felicia.
Bye. Well,
that was great.
So I thought that was pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, he just leaves his own town hall. His staffer comes and collects his papers.
And that's an idea of what's going on all over the country. Now, people talk about an inflection point because of Minnesota and ICE, and we're going to go over some polling and talk a little bit about that. But we need to be really clear about what's going on here. The inflection point is in public opinion. Trump has lost the public opinion battle over what's going on with ICE.
Yes.
It is not an inflection point in terms of, okay, now I'm going to do things differently.
Right.
Any differently
not even
that he
Minneapolis
does has to do with public relations and speaking to the public, not policy. He's not changing the policy in Minneapolis. ICE is still being assholes. I mean, none of that is changing.
Yes, lots of reports on the ground. Bovino's gone, and there was some extra excitement in the air for the ICE guys to try to impress Bovino, and now that he's gone, now they're just doing it because they like to be assholes.
Yeah, they're routinely Tom Homan thugs as opposed to do it for the camera Greg Bovino thugs. And Homan gave a press conference this morning. I only saw part of it. Clearly the beginning was aimed at MAGA voters and MAGA influencers. There was a story online about MAGA influencers not being happy with Trump because he seems to be backing down. And they, who get paid by Russia, want the crackdown against their perceived enemies. And they're not getting it, so they're not happy. And they're threatening not to show up in the midterms unless Trump cracks down. So Homan is there to crack down, but put I'm just doing my routine thing. All we want is for cops in Minnesota to cooperate with cops in the federal, agencies, and that's all. No big deal. Nothing to see here. Move along. It was that kind of press conference. So don't buy it.
Well,
what you should look for is an inflection in public opinion. And I want to go into that in a little more detail before we go into the particulars of what's bad. But I do want to mention before we get started on that, this New York Times piece, Trump and Schumer move toward possible deal to avert a shutdown. And yes, as you said, the idea is 5 bills pass and one gets set aside, and they do I don't know if they do a continuing resolution, but they do an extension in some fashion for the DHS part of it, and then they negotiate on that. And the stories online are that the White House is not unaverse to this, but Thune wants to do the big spending bill, everything first, and see it fail before he'll go so far as to make these other arrangements, which need to be made before tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, so he's up against the wall. Ordinarily, if they had gotten to work a week or two ago and said, well, let's try the omnibus bill, and if it doesn't work, then that's a reasonable position to take, just not 2 days before the shutdown.
Well, there's nothing reasonable about what they're doing.
No.
Well,
I don't know what
basically
I was
saying,
for.
I take no responsibility for anything that happens in government. It's all Trump.
Yeah.
If he says we'll do it, we'll do it.
He's the majority leader and the speaker. So.
Yeah. Well,
Trump.
That's the other thing. I don't know where the House is. I don't even know if they're in session.
No, they're not.
How do you get this done by Friday night?
You can't. They tried to pull
You can't even get an extension done by Friday night.
No. They tried to pull the the Senate thing. It doesn't work. The Senate does jamming.
They always try
here.
it. I mean, I'm not saying it never works under somebody else, but it never works under Mike Johnson because he doesn't know what they're doing.
Right. That's true. Right. I don't think they're in session. I don't think they were scheduled to be in session. This was them passing their take at it and then walking out to give, so that there would be no negotiation possible.
Right. So in regard to the bigger picture, let me give you some polling because I think it's all important in terms of background.
50% of me wants to hear this.
Talk about some concepts here.
Okay.
All right. This is from The Argument, which is a
no, it isn't.
Blog. Yes.
All right.
Trump is losing the working class, a multiracial working class coalition, if you can keep it.
Yeah.
Lower income voters are turning on Trump fastest. Trump is losing the most ground among lower income voters. If you make less than $25,000 a year, your net approval for Trump in the 2024 vote.
Yeah.
Basically, you voted for Trump by +2. Your net approval is now -20.
All right.
25 to 50,000 a year, +2 to -15, 50 to 100, +1 to -13, 100 to 200,000 a year, +3 to -8. And if you make more than $200,000 a year, you actually didn't vote for Trump. It was a -2 in the 2024 vote, but it's now -12.
So we should have more subscribers.
+2 to -20, a 22-point swing, is lower income voters. And Lakeisha Jane makes the point, these are not party loyalty things at all. The Republican Party is losing support among young, non-white, disengaged voters, male, non-college educated, you name it, because they're frustrated with prices and other things.
Yeah. What other
Working class
things?
voters don't like how the country is going. And it's not that they love Democrats. They don't like who's in power because the situation that they're in sucks.
Yeah, even if they're not being hunted
lower-income
by
white voters
ICE.
are turning on Trump fastest. They went from a +26 to net 0 right now.
All right.
Low-income white
I think you
voters
can't win with net 0.
do not have a favorable opinion of Donald Trump.
Well, he's not white. He's orange. We know that.
Lower-income white voters
I see.
are his MAGA base.
That is what they say. However,
Among
the
poorest
price
white
of a
voters, Trump
cheeseburger
has
has gone
lost
through the roof.
26 points of approval relative to his 2024 margins.
I mean,
Cost of living.
Okay.
It's the economy
yeah.
is stupid.
I mean,
It's
they're getting the
economy
crackdown
stupid,
they
and it's the
wanted.
economy stupid. But there's one other thing, and that comes in terms of the crackdown. And that comes from Mike Madrid, who is a Latino consultant, a Latino expert, who is Latino, who is a Latino expert on voting. 53% of Americans say ICE should be abolished, says KJZZ in Phoenix, 91.5.
Playing the hits.
53% of Americans say ICE should be abolished. A GOP consultant says this is not about immigration. And he's making a really important point that I think we need to hone in on. And Sarah Longwell, in a different focus group, made sort of the same point.
All right.
Right? There is a sweet spot, Sarah Longwell said, for immigration policy.
2008.
Close the border, but don't overreach. It's relatively simple. Mike Madrid says the reason that the American public is souring on ICE is based on their recent conduct because they are overreaching. It's not because they want open borders. It's not because they disagree with the idea and the stated intent of finding criminals who have broken the law, who are here illegally, and deporting them.
Criminal
that
in
remains
some other
a popular
sense.
concept. What they don't like is killing white dudes with a license to carry a gun.
Well, ordinarily, no, they don't. Because that's them, usually.
Yes, because that's them. That's exactly right. So the whole revulsion about what ICE is doing isn't because people are realizing immigrants are good and everybody wants them. That's not what's going on here. It's a
that's not
mixture, which is basically driven by whatever it is you're talking about, whichever issue. ICE and Trump are overreaching on it. And that's the way it needs to be framed for the midterms.
Okay.
Not that Trump's immigration policy is wrong, ours is better. People don't buy that.
It doesn't sound
trust
very
Democrats
interesting.
on it because they think that Biden opened the borders and let millions and millions of illegal immigrants into the country. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. That's what people think.
All right.
You want to undo that, it's going to take years. What you can get them on right now is that whatever, that was then, this is now. There are no hordes coming across the border. We all know that. But Trump is overreaching by using ICE as a domestic police force, and that's not what you signed up for.
Okay.
You wanted people who were here illegally committing crimes to be deported. What they're doing is shooting white dudes with a legal and proper permit to carry a gun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also inconveniencing you. The few immigrants that you're, if not happy, at least tolerant of seeing in your everyday life, because they do fill essential functions for you, and you recognize that, are being rounded up and harassed and arrested.
Well,
I thought you were going after criminals. This is the guy I buy flowers from on Valentine's Day. What's happening?
You'll break even on that point of view. You'll win on the government overreaching.
Yeah.
And that's really his political point.
Okay. Well, then that's what I'll take.
It's okay to break even on their strongest issue. Don't get me wrong. But you'll actually win that issue on overreach.
Okay. Even if they... All right. Well, and we can see
right
why.
Or wrong here. We're talking about political salience.
Right. True. Okay. And yeah, I mean, I know this scares them, and I guess this is the first time that's ever occurred to them that, hey, that could be me. Some must have.
Well, when you say
into
scares
that.
them, you mean scares MAGA voters.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean.
Some of them. And it's not really MAGA voters. MAGA voters say, well, in every war there's casualties. But non-MAGA Republican voters who support the president, which is a different group, do not like this.
Yes. Okay, so we should differentiate. There are probably, the super hardcore MAGA voters just say, no, that won't be me because of magic that will make the president recognize
and besides,
pardon me.
I want you to, beat up some more heads. That's why I voted for
well, they do like that.
This is exactly what I voted for.
Some people do, in fact, say that. They're, in fact, on podcasts that make a lot more money.
Right. It turns out, and this was an interesting observation that I had. One of my more conservative National Review contributors, Jeff Blahar, was talking about, there really needs to be a sweet spot here, and Democrats just always go too far. And I watch Eric Erickson, and he says things like Trump is doing awful things, but I have to vote for him, and I'd vote for him again because, my God, the alternative is Democrats. Those folks are unreachable. You can reach them on how bad Trump is doing. You're never going to convince them to vote for you. But there's things you can do and there's things you can't do. And one of the things that Democratic consultants have to go away from is abolish ICE is popular, at least temporarily. And the reason it's popular, again, isn't immigration. It's overreach.
Okay.
So, yes, you can say abolish ICE, but you have to be clear as to why you're saying it. And an alternative to that, if you want to take another approach, is abolish Homeland Security. Homeland Security is not popular right now, and people who helped create Homeland Security are online saying this is awful and you got to get rid of this.
Yeah. Why not?
Start with the Homeland Security Secretary, but then do the whole goddamn department. You can win with that.
Yeah, you may end up having it have to be a reorganization of some kind, but certainly
you need those functions.
It was never a popular thing. It wasn't like people were clamoring for it. We loved the idea of security for our homeland, but everyone was creeped out by this department the minute it was proposed, and 90% of the people who actually thought anything about it thought, this thing will get out of hand relatively quickly. Well, it has. So
So to put a straw man on it to illustrate the point, Democrats can't be in the situation of saying, well, I don't believe in security or I won't support this increased security.
That's not a popular platform.
That is not going to win anything. You can't do that. That's why you have to be careful not because people don't want to get rid of ICE, but you have to understand that they want to get rid of ICE because the government is overreaching. They're going to use ICE as a security force to back up the FBI seizing voting machines in Fulton County. That kind of thing.
Yes.
Is that true? Well, that's what people think, and that's what we're talking about here. So overreach, that's your ticket.
All right. I like that. That's easy to say. Everyone knows overreach.
Yep.
Got it.
This article from the New York Times, shooting aftermath leaves Homeland Security Department in turmoil as officials point fingers in the wake of Alex Pretty's death at the hands of federal agents. Concerns grow about the agency's future. Well, yeah.
One might even say, duh.
You're not reading things that say concerns are growing about ICE's future. But Homeland Security, yeah, there's actual real reporting that's saying people are concerned about whether or not it's going to exist in its current form.
Yeah. I don't know that, I don't know what kind of polling there is on it, but even just,
well, they're
just
talking
generally
about people
speaking,
who work there. The situation has engulfed the department in turmoil and prompted widespread concern among the rank and file and members of Congress over the future of an agency tasked with protecting the United States from threats at home and abroad. Remember, Homeland Security came into existence after 9/11.
Yeah.
After W screwed everything up. Current and former Homeland Security officials have already described a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment at the agency, leading Trump's push to arrest and deport millions of immigrants. It appears to be chaos. Deborah Fleischshaker, who was the assistant director for policy for ICE during the Biden administration, said of leadership of Homeland Security, immigration has been politicized for a long time, but what we're seeing now is an escalation of that and such an embrace of power as the ultimate tool. In other words, overreach.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm beginning to see this coalesce as a package, even to the extent anybody ever thought about Homeland Security. I guess if you ask people, like, what's their everyday impression or what your interaction, I suppose for most people it would be, I don't know, the TSA, I guess, although they were already there inspecting us. But, I mean, that's, I guess, the face of it to most people. And the whole thing, the overreach thing works for me as I realize, the Trump administration the one pivot they've ever done that I guess was actually successful was convincing everybody that Homeland Security and their main focus ought to be, it was their story about, immigration isn't immigration, it's an invasion. And so therefore Homeland Security needs to be focused on that. People are like, I wanted the airplanes to be safe and not fly into our buildings. This internal focus, ethnic cleansing thing was not what I had in mind. It doesn't make any sense. That's not even the agency I would have thought would do. How did we why is they focusing on us? That should be an outward facing thing, except for finding domestic terrorists, which are, of course, MAGA voters. So forget it. But yeah, that's been a big sort of transformation in what people think Homeland Security is supposed to be doing. It wasn't supposed to be a domestic police force, seeking out evil here.
Exactly right. And that is your ticket for getting rid of Homeland Security.
All right.
Reorganizing ICE is simply a part of, the structure that would have to happen should that occur.
Okay. All right. We're building a permission structure. I'll be right back. I'm going to get a hammer.
Here's an important corrective that David French points out. Minnesota Department of Corrections releases new evidence showing DHS is publishing false arrest claims at scale. The Minnesota Department of Corrections accused DHS government of publishing false arrest claims. DHS suggests they're saving Minnesotans from dangerous criminals when, in fact, all they're doing is coming there and picking them up at prison for a routine handoff that they do all the time.
Oh, interesting.
Even Holman today said that Department of Corrections is cooperating with us, so we're very happy about that. Well, that's where all of their statistics about, we picked up a bunch of criminals. You didn't pick them up. They were already in jail.
Bus station. That is interesting. So I was thinking they were just faking the whole thing top to bottom. We don't have anybody in custody, but we'll say we have 50,000 criminals. But this is...
We do, but it wasn't us.
Yeah. Well, this is more understandable in terms of faking it. But I get you. Yeah. So boosting their numbers. I guess if they can't create video content, they need to create statistics.
Right. Different poll. This is Fox News poll. 59% of voters say ICE is too aggressive, up 10 points since July. 52% approve of how Trump is handling border security, while 55% disapprove on immigration. Again, these are separate issues. Mm-hmm. And 52% approve of how Trump is handling border security. It's basically, close to a tie. So you can fight them to neutral on border security. And again, non-democratic so-called center-right people are saying, people don't understand how unhappy everybody was with Biden about letting millions of immigrants in to the country, and closing the borders is popular, and don't go back to the old way because you'll lose your public. Maybe, probably, okay, but it's economy stupid.
Okay. And what a stupid economy it is.
It is.
As everybody
so if you're at the lower end of the income scale, you're incredibly unhappy. It's based on the economy. It's not based on policy about the border. So, I mean, there are things people can say, look, I give Trump a +5 on the border and a -10 on immigration. Well, what are your top 10 issues? Well, the economy, also inflation and the economy, whether or not I have a job, and the economy.
Yeah.
Oh, where does border security come in? Well, it's like 15.
Yeah. I suppose when the economy and the bad economy was chiefly focused on jobs, I guess the lower end of the spectrum could at least point to immigration and say, well, I blame them for taking up all the jobs. And of course, that was never really true. But here, like, you can't blame immigrants for the high price of McDonald's. It's just, it is. And
no, it is, because, see, they're eating the dogs and cats, and so McDonald doesn't have any material to work with.
That may be it. I have noticed that the McRib has not come back lately.
You see? It's all the Somalians' fault.
Yes. By the way, I understand there's a class action lawsuit out there from McRib fans who found out that there's no rib meat in those, and they're suing. But unfortunately, they found out what was in there. It's even worse.
Stuff about Somalians.
Yes, true. All right, yeah, right. That may become the next target. No one knows where ICE lands next. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. But why don't we just admit that it's the Greg Dworkin show for the first hour? I like it that way, too. Lets me put my feet up. And, all right, let's continue on here. I was just catching everybody who was on, who could hear my microphone during the break, which is Greg, on appropriations and which ones have already been done. Essentially, most of the government that faces you each day, still not funded. But the legislative branch, yes. Department of Justice, for whatever that's worth, yes. Agriculture, yes. Rest of the government, no.
So there'll be a what they call a test vote today. Boone wants to see how many votes his son gets.
They failed the test, yeah.
And then they've got basically 24 hours to put something together.
That's
so
enough
we'll see
time.
what happens.
Yeah.
And again, let's look at some more Fox polling. They also did Trump's approval. Trump starts at 2026 with 44% approval. Republicans, Democrats, and independents agree Trump should prioritize the economy. Is he prioritizing the economy?
Okay.
No, he is not. He's just going around saying things are great, don't believe your lying eyes. That's not going to work. What he's doing is he's putting his thugs on the street to beat people up, if not shoot them, like he's doing in Minneapolis, and that is overreach, and that's what you should go with. That's not prioritizing the economy. If you say Trump should prioritize the economy instead, he's shooting American citizens, white dudes with guns in Minneapolis, you're going to sound like a radical bomb thrower. And if you say Trump should prioritize the economy, he's overreaching in Minneapolis, then you sound like a sober analyst, even though you're saying the same thing.
I guess so. But yeah, people will say you're boring.
Yeah, that's.
But if they elect you, it won't matter as much.
Angus Reid, as who was it? Josh Hawley.
Oh.
Said Kristi Noem is doing not so good. He was Trump's choice. She was Trump's choice. And a reporter said, "What? Would you vote for her again, given what you know?" And Hawley said, "I don't have to."
Yeah. Pretty much. There you go. That's the answer. What? And they're just afraid to criticize until there's a critical mass. When they have a meeting and they'll say, "Let's all say impeach her all at once." Then,
but more to the point,
maybe.
Angus Reid did a poll, January 27, 2026. What grade would you give Trump for his first year?
Incomplete. I was looking for that one. Oh, yeah.
66%.
Right. Mm-hmm.
66% give him an F.
Yeah, and that's
D,
not a lot of people that give an F.
C, 8%. B, 9%. A, 6%. 66% give him an F.
Wow. That's some curve. That's right. He's F that guy.
By this poll. Look, that's what's going on.
Well, I don't see how else you could do it. Although, like I say, I'd say incomplete, I suppose. Or I'm looking for him to not complete 2026, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well.
It's not up to me. I'm just saying. Nature could take its course.
Rick Sargent says Donald Trump is frightened. Trump wants to appear eager to minimize out-of-control clashes between government militias and protesters, but he doesn't want to stop the things causing the clashes, so that's why he sent Tom Homan. He wants it to be
what is that supposed to do?
A kinder, gentler, grifter.
I guess he's gentler than Bovino. Is that the idea? I mean, it's hard to tell him apart.
In my mind, is always going to be, which one are you?
Yeah, I guess. They do look a little bit like. Anyway, it's just odd. I don't know. Nobody likes Tom Homan, and he's a trash talker too.
Yeah, well, here's
so
the thing.
I don't know why he's a good substitute.
Because he's good for the MAGA voters who were threatening to revolt if Trump doesn't crack heads.
I guess he doesn't dress up and go out and punch people. As far as
Adam
I know.
Sower, he's not doing cosplay.
Right. So there is that.
The Atlantic, Adam Sower writes, Minnesota proved MAGA wrong. The pushback against ICE exposed a series of mistaken assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because people in Minneapolis have organized. We talked about that yesterday. And they're pushing back, and they're doing it nonviolently, and they're doing great. And Sower writes, perhaps the Trump administration officials had hoped that a few rabble-rousers would get violent, justifying the kind of crackdown he seems to fantasize about. Maybe they had assumed that they would find only a caricature of the resistance, people who seethe about Trump online but would be unwilling to do anything. Instead, what they discovered in the frozen North was something different, a real resistance, broad, organized, overwhelmingly nonviolent, the kind of movement that emerges only under sustained attacks by an oppressive state.
Yeah.
Who is it? Paul Krugman is calling it the color revolution.
Oh, yes.
Likening to things in Europe when people nonviolently revolt against oppressive regimes.
Middle East,
they're risking their safety to defend their neighbors and their freedom. It's a neighbor revolution. They aren't looking for attention or likes on social media unless they're killed by federal agents. You don't even know who their names are. Many use a handle or code name out of fear of government retaliation, so they don't even know who they are.
Well, they know.
One urgent question among observers as the videos of Alex Pretty's killing spread was what his handle might have been.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
And they're talking about people who are using handles like Red Bear and, this is my first occupation, got to do what you got to do, picking up food and delivering it to people who are afraid to go out, that sort of thing. And
yes,
if
there's
the
a lot
Minnesota
to
resistance
do
has
in
an
this.
overarching ideology, you could call it neighborism. That's really what's going on here.
All right.
And then he describes how they work in pairs and how they're going around filming people, which is the thing that Alex Pretty got shot for.
Yes.
Even among those involved in opposing ICE in Minnesota, people have a range of political views. The nonviolent nature of the movement and the focus on caring for neighbors has drawn in volunteers with many different perspectives on immigration, including people who might have been supportive if the Trump administration's claims of a targeted effort to deport violent criminals had been sincere.
if they hadn't overreached.
As I said the other day, they believe the promises.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what they're meant for.
Yeah, but they don't like what's actually happening.
No. But yeah, the description of how Minneapolis organized, I mean, it may not be exactly replicable everywhere, but it was interesting to see. I've seen some good analyses, I think, of the difference between it and, say, mass protest movements that, picking a date and having marches and rallies.
And there'll be a King's March next month.
Oh, yeah. And there'll be a turnout for
and
it.
They matter.
And that is absolutely a component
of
this. This is just a different thing, yes. And people could find, just as we could find, the rallies are most successful when you can find one near you, even if you're suburban. And here, you don't have to go far to find a spot in Minneapolis where you are needed as a volunteer, and someone will tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. If you want to join in, all you need to do is leave your front door.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
It's coming to you.
People have pointed out this isn't just protesting; it's giving somebody something to do. Yeah,
and they feel like they're making a concrete contribution because they are. That's actually true. And you don't have to leave your neighborhood to do it, and you don't have to.
It's not abstract. It's not performative. It's actual substantive work. So from the article, one of the things I believe, and I know most of the Latino community agrees, is we want the bad people out, like I was saying. We want the criminals out. Pastor Miguel, who immigrated from Mexico 30 years ago, told me, all of us came here looking for a better life, so when we have criminals, rapists, when we have people who have done horrible things, we're afraid of them. We don't want them here. The problem is federal agents are not going after just criminals. Minnesota's doing that, and then they're handing them over to ICE. That's not ICE coming in to get rid of the criminals. Growing distraught, Pastor Miguel said one of the men who helped organize the food drive, a close friend of his, who he believed had legal status, had been picked up by federal agents. I didn't have words, because these families also need us. So all of this is going on. Now, the MAGA faith in liberal weakness has been paired with the conviction that real men, Trump's men, are conversely strong. Consider Stephen Miller's bizarre meltdown when addressing Memphis police. The gangbangers that you deal with, they think they're ruthless. They have no idea how ruthless we are. They think they're tough. They have no idea how tough we are, Miller said.
He cried about sushi.
Right.
Guy.
When that fellow said to Greg Bovino, "Oh, you're not happy? Which one are you?"
Right.
Maybe he was referring to Stephen Miller.
Could be. Well, he's certainly
They think
not
they're
happy.
hardcore, Miller said. They are much more hardcore than they are.
Yeah,
we are.
Sure we are.
Around this time, Miller moved his family onto a military base for safety reasons.
Right. True enough.
Right.
He's
so the federal
such a
agents
weirdo.
sent to Minnesota wear body armor, masks, bear long guns and sidearms, but their skittishness and brutality are qualities associated with fear, not resolve.
Right.
It takes a lot more courage to stare down the barrel of a gun when you're armed with a whistle than it is to point a gun at an unarmed protester.
Right.
Every social theory undergirding Trumpism has been broken on the steel of Minnesotan resolve. The multiracial community in Minneapolis was supposed to shatter. It didn't. It held until Bovino was forced out of the Twin Cities with his long coat between his legs. The secret fear of the morally depraved is that virtue is actually common, and they're the ones who are alone. That's what's been exposed there.
I do
No
like
matter
that
how
take.
many more armed men Trump sends to impose his will on the people of Minnesota, all he can do is accentuate their valor. No application of armed violence can make the men with guns as heroic as the people who chose to stand in their path with empty hands in defense of their neighbors. This is Tiananmen Square. These agents and the president who sent them are no one's heroes, no one's saviors, just men with guns who have to hide their face to shoot a mom in the face and a nurse in the back.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. They're losing, and nothing about sending Tom Homan and putting a kinder face on it, if you consider Homan's face kind.
Yeesh.
Kinder than Bovino, I suppose. But it's not going to work. It can't work. It's just impossible. And I think Sarah was right about what Minnesota showed. But that's where the pivot is. Not Trump's actions, but how the public sees it. So again, overreach, overreach, overreach. That's your mantra. Is the economy stupid and Trump is in the meanwhile overreaching? Where are your health dollars going? They're going to ICE. Why isn't Trump paying attention to the economy? Because he's too focused on ICE. Overreach, overreach. We win the midterms.
All right, let's get to it
if
already.
they take place.
Right. And if you're counting down the number of days until you find that out, will they have the election? You'll know for sure in 278 days, although you'll have early voting going on. So you'll know earlier than that, although they may just seize all those ballots. Who knows? And the crucial point, I mean, don't forget that there's still distance between having the election and having it mean something. 339 days until we would seat a new Congress on January 3rd, 2020. What? 7. Yes. So.
Well, this is a reminder from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution how an FBI raid in Georgia became a campaign opportunity for Democrats. Not all news is bad.
I mean, at the heart of it, FBI raid is bad news. But yes, let's get to that. That's the biggest news of the day, I believe.
Right. For a few hours on Wednesday, the site of a massive Fulton County election records warehouse raided by FBI agents became an impromptu campaign stop for some of Georgia's top Democrats. Party leaders went to Union City. In other words, Democrats aren't ignoring this.
They're filming it for campaign ads. That's funny.
They are making this an election issue.
Yeah.
And by making it an election issue, Republicans are going to lose.
Good. When? In 278 days.
Yeah. Democrat U.S. Senator John Ossoff says this is part of a sore losers crusade. Let's be clear about what's going on here. Now, interestingly,
it's overreach.
Tulsi Gabbard was seen and photographed there.
Why?
Reuters has a
That's
photograph
the problem.
of her on the phone.
Yeah, she's no
and Mark
role
Warner
in this.
says, Mark Warner from the great state of Virginia, which is
Commonwealth. Yes.
Commonwealth of Virginia.
It's pretty great.
Mark Warner says, why is Tulsi Gabbard at an FBI raid on an election office in Fulton County? There's only two explanations for why the Director of National Intelligence would show up at a federal raid tied to Donald Trump's obsession with losing the 2020 election. Either Director Gabbard believes this is a legitimate foreign intelligence nexus, in which case she's in clear violation of her obligation under the law to keep the intelligence community fully and currently informed, or she's once again demonstrating her utter lack of fitness for the office that she holds by injecting the nonpartisan intelligence community she's supposed to be leading into a domestic political stunt.
Oh, well, those are two bad reasons to be there.
Either one is bad.
Yeah.
Either's a serious breach of trust, says Mark Warner, that further underscores why she's totally unqualified to hold a position that demands sound judgment, apolitical independence, and a singular force on keeping Americans safe. Again, I would point out, Democrats may not be rushing to impeach Trump, even though he deserves it, but they're not averse to impeaching the cabinet.
Well, we ought to start on it, and there's a lot of...
Christine Hill may be top of the list, but Gabbard's up there.
Sure.
Bondi's up there, of course, Hegseth, and absolutely RFK Jr.
Director of National Intelligence, was that a job, an office also created by, essentially alongside Homeland Security? Did we do that at the same time? I think there was this reorganization. I don't remember there being a Director of National Intelligence, further back than that. I feel like that was one of those reforms. They said, well, the intelligence agencies aren't talking to one another. We got to have one person coordinating all of that, except that person is watching FBI raids in Georgia, so it's not helping. But that too could be set for revamping. We don't need to confuse the message at the moment by saying. But once you put all this stuff on the table, might take a look at that as well.
According to Wikipedia,
yes,
George W. Bush strengthened the role of the Director of National Intelligence.
Maybe that's
didn't create it,
okay,
and it got elevated to a cabinet position under the first Trump administration.
Okay. Maybe it's that. Yeah, that could use some revamping itself. Yep. And I guess one of the could say, and at the policy level, this will be too boring for everybody else, but I mean the whole idea, which was a good one at the time. Remember, we were worried that 9/11 was partially caused / facilitated by this lack of communication between the various members of the intelligence community, and they were going to, have fusion centers and strengthen the DNI and create Homeland Security, and there would be more information sharing, and of course that turned out to be, invasive in a lot of ways. But I guess one of the downsides of this ability to coordinate the focus of the intelligence community is that it's hijacked by a moron who thinks that the true threat to Homeland Security is Italian military satellites coordinating with the dead Hugo Chavez to have the Chinese send bamboo pulp ballots in suitcases to Atlanta, then the whole apparatus turns to that, and you end up with the DNI at the raid in Atlanta and not paying attention to things like people who are determined to strike in the U.S., let's say.
Right, exactly right.
Okay.
So I got another video for you. I think it's at the bottom of the list.
I think I'm almost prepared on this. Harry Enton, I saw your note.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. All right. Let's. You want to intro it, or should I just go?
Well, this is about the whole point about
the
pastor and how he felt about the work of ICE. We're okay with deporting criminals, but play Harry Enton.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Well, Harry Enton's a loud guy. Let's put this level at about here and go.
I'll give you a baseline, and I'll just say there has been a massive backlash against the President of the United States among Latino voters, because what are we talking about here? Well, let's just take a look at Trump's net approval rating among Latinos. You go back a year ago, right at the beginning of his first term, wasn't too bad, right? About 5 points underwater. A lot of Republicans would really like that. But take a look where we are today. Over a 20-point decline, now down to negative 28 points, Donald Trump's net approval rating among Latinos. A much larger drop we've seen among Latinos than we have seen among the American electorate overall.
What about the deportation program, though?
Yeah, okay, so what is causing this, right? There have been a lot of things in which the American people dislike Donald Trump more than they did a year ago. But among Latinos, they really... That's
what's driving all this.
That is a big driver of what's going on here. Trump's net approval rating among Latinos on his deportation program. Look at this. You go back a year ago, according to the CBS News YouGov poll, he was right at even, right? As many people approved as disapproved. Again, that's really good numbers for Republican among Latinos. But look at where we are now. 34 points underwater. There has been an over 30-point shift away from Donald Trump among Latinos on his deportation program. What we have seen among Latinos is a drop overall, much of which is being driven by how they are viewing his deportation program. I saw one of the founders for Latinos for Trump the other day say immigration is going to cost Republicans during the midterm elections. And when you look at numbers like this, you have to say, hey, she's coming from the numbers, because the numbers agree with that. Latinos do not like what Donald Trump is doing on his deportation program, and it is driving his overall numbers down. Look at this. I mean, you rarely ever see a 35-point decline over a year, but it is happening with Trump among Latinos on his deportation program. No is what the Latino community is saying.
All right, I'm going to pause it at this point because there's another 30 seconds. I don't know what's at the last 30 seconds. You let me know.
Congressional Democrats are doing 15 points better than Harris did with Latinos.
I'm willing to listen to that. Okay, but I'm interrupting because I'm stealing CNN.
But you don't even have to, that's what he says.
Okay, well then how about I don't?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm just saying, that's what he says. So you can skip that part.
Except he says it like, hey, look at this over here.
I like Harry's from New York.
I guess so. All right. Well, yeah, I mean,
now, how do you separate that out from the economy, which Latinos also hate Trump for screwing up?
All right.
You can't. It's all intertwined.
I wouldn't try.
But it's economy and overreaching to do other things instead of working on the economy. And also lying to us about what you were doing.
Okay.
You said you were going to get the criminals. That's not what I see when you pick up my neighbor.
Right. Yes, most people, what they didn't realize is that he thought they were criminals just for being here. And I mean, I don't know how you missed it. He did say that a lot.
You're absolutely right, but that's not an argument you're going to win. The fact that he is overreaching is an argument you're going to win.
Sure. Well, I don't need to make the argument, but yeah, it is
Josh
interesting.
Hawley? I don't have to vote on that.
but yeah, I mean, well, I guess if you believe the promises, well, you're very dumb. But that's not part of the discussion at the moment.
Yep.
That's fine. I think they privately realize that now. Also, I guess, I did see a couple of days ago and put away the article, and maybe I'll dig it out in the second hour here, but this obviously illustrates the point. For whatever reason, for like 50 years, the Miami Cuban community has been totally immune from this because they're just not treated like part of the immigrant Latino community when it comes to crackdowns and yelling at people. because they're so solidly Republican, and they really, I guess, thought that this would buy them immunity from it. And yesterday you brought up one of the Florida Cuban politicians, Republican politicians, saying, "Hey, this is not going well, and we actually are very upset about this." But there was an article the other day that they're caught by surprise. They really did sort of think that, I guess, the 50-year record of immunity and being held out as somehow different and special is now over. They can't believe it. And guess what? They're unhappy with the way the overreach has been going, because it's now including them. If you include me in this picture, that's overreach. It just is.
All right, I'm going to change the subject.
All right.
And go back to a little bit of procedure in the House here.
All right.
Because Matt Glassman brought up something which is really interesting.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Let's say John Thune doesn't get what he wants, and the Democrats block passage of everything, and he's sort of forced to split off DHS into a separate bill, and, pass the 5 and then work on the DHS bill.
Okay.
Then it goes over to the House.
Yes.
At some point. And what if the House doesn't have the votes or the politics for a special rule, and they can't get 2/3 for a suspension? In other words,
no.
If the plan that the Democrats have, Schumer and others, is to split off DHS, stick with me here.
Yeah.
And the other 5 pass, and the House agrees, and the other 5 pass. And then there's a continuing resolution in order to fund DHS until they figure out what to do. That has to go to the House.
Yeah.
And that might well pass the House, but can't get through Rules, because Rules has Chip Roy and other nutcases on it.
Yeah.
What do you do when you can't get it through Rules? You can't just go for a suspension of the rules, because that takes 2/3, and you'll never have that.
Yeah.
So what do you do? That's the question on the table.
I don't know, but
they have to pass it.
Actually,
it's a must-pass bill.
Yes,
they
do.
Can't get it through Rules. What the hell do you do?
Well, normally this is why the answer is didn't jump out at me at first, because I'm thinking, oh well, historically, yeah, that's a difficult position. In current events, actually, I think more people know the answer than they think. They've just been trained not to think it's the answer, and the answer currently is discharge petition.
Discharge petition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
But has it been around long enough
to
do that? Doesn't it have to ripen? Well, you have to attach it to some other bill that you have sitting around for that purpose, because everybody thought to do that. We're experts on this.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have to be.
The Homeland Security bill, I guess, the bill itself, I guess, would have been languishing enough, but it's been the House bill. I guess if you change the House bill.
Take some other bill and just say this is.
Yeah, because you'd want to change the Homeland Security bill. You don't want to pass it as is. You want to change.
Right, but the change is what's to be negotiated.
Right. Okay,
so you have to pass
petition,
something else.
Sure.
You take some other vehicle and say, okay, this is the continuing resolution. Do that. That'll get us past Rules, because Chip Roy and his buddies. I mean, there's no way that Jim McGovern and Chip Roy are going to agree on doing something together for the good of the country. It's just not going to happen.
No, can't imagine.
Whatever Chip Roy wants, Jim McGovern will say it's a terrible idea, and he's probably right.
Yeah.
And so what do you do? And so you have to go around rules. You're right. So you have to do a discharge petition. I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We are now governing by discharge petition.
Right, which is bizarre. Again, it's like, well, the training of decades in this is, you're kind of jammed. There's no way you could. Oh, well, what about a discharge? No, those don't work. Wait, they do work now. All right, discharge petition. As a matter of fact, while we're on the subject, I got an email the other day that asked a pertinent question, and I think the answer is similar. I got from, we're all using handles here now, like the Minneapolis people. We're back to the old days. Cosmic Runamuck. Cosmic Runamuck has asked, actually, as we fight over Homeland Security funding, ICE funding, et cetera, and we remind people, okay, even if they don't pass the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill, the one big, stupid, ridiculous bill had billions and billions, $75 billion for ICE outrageously. And so they won't have to shut down their operations. They can depend on that money. So everybody says, well, at the minimum, you have to say no new funding for ICE. That's the big fight in the appropriations realm. But Cosmic, Run Amok, and others, I'm sure, have wondered, well, is there any way to claw back any of that $75 billion ridiculousness that was passed before? Like, it's not just locked in forever, is it? Well, it runs into all sorts of problems. There is, though, a process for it. It's called rescissions. They can, in fact, Congress can decide, we put too much into this. We want to claw some of that back. And, of course, it requires, getting it through the House and through the Senate and not being vetoed, et cetera, all those problems. But that might be a good target for a discharge petition, too. Another, the thing we now love about the fact that they work means that you can actually put out a petition and say who has signed it and who hasn't, and pressure people individually to get on board. So anyway, that's just you may find that that one won't work necessarily in the end, but it makes for a good thing to do, even if it's not going to pass. It's a good messaging bill.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and just in the seconds remaining, I have to tell you, George Will, again, has a nice turn of phrase here. He refers to Kristi Noem as part of the loutocracy.
Yeah, everybody's coming up with new names. You have to, because we don't know what the hell we're working under. Americans should not trust ICE.
Kristi Noem isn't the only reason. Assume this loutocracy statements on its deportation mania are lies until proven otherwise.
Loutocracy. All right. What was it? Oh, and I like that one. And Don Moynihan's clicktatorship was interesting as well. I got to get to that article. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Greg. I can't say you should be. Well, I can say you should come back tomorrow, but you won't because it's your day off. So, well, how about come back next week? Except the Wizard of Oz doesn't actually say it.
See you Monday.
All right, you Wizard of Oz.
Said.
Yeah. Hey. Bald a-hole.
Go away. See you Monday.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, brought to you by Discharge Petition. I like the idea of that, by the way, if we ever run into the Wizard of Oz again.
Come back tomorrow.
Oh, yeah?
Bald asshole?
Exactly. He did not have hair, the Wizard of Oz, at least the projection of the Wizard of Oz. That, I guess his brain was too big for hair. What was the thinking of the design of that? I don't know. Anyway, maybe it was true to the novel. I have no idea. You think I read it? I see the movie, and that's that. All right. So stories to update you on. There is an awful lot. But yes, the appropriations problems continue. But it is interesting, right? A good point. The discharge petition holds the door open on a lot of things that you would have thought were otherwise impossible. And even if they don't succeed in bringing something to the floor that actually passes, it's a very popular messaging medium now at this point because it has worked for the first time in a million years. People are paying attention to it. I mean, well, insofar as they're paying attention to anything having to do with legislation and policy. The headlines in the New York Times will tell them to pay attention to it. All right, stories that are in the hopper. In Instapaper, there are many. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. I think maybe we'll go down to the FBI search story. It's bizarre. We need to have more information on it. It's being developed. The next couple of days will be very interesting writing about just what are they doing. And I mean, it's really hard to explain. If you had to explain this to, I don't know, aliens from another planet, I don't know if you'd be able to. It's going to be difficult enough to explain in the history books to our own kids, except that the Trump administration and whatever successor administrations there may be, if they are under the Trump thumb or MAGA's thumb, there won't be any history taught to kids anyway. Another story, that we actually haven't had time for on the air that illustrates the point. I'm not kidding, right? You've probably seen the stories of workers taking down historical signs and interpretive displays at various historical sites around the country. The Smithsonian, of course, being revamped and turned upside down. Remember, that was actually Lindsay Halligan's first job, was turning the Smithsonian into MAGA compliant history, but also in Philadelphia, where the ICE goons may or may not show up next, although I think Gritty will beat them up. They've been prying historical interpretive displays off of the walls at the is it all one big historical park, the Independence Hall area, but prying down a display, removing a display about the actual history of the first 100+ years of the United States, not to mention prior to the establishment of the United States, about slavery, just removing all references to it. It'll make white people feel bad, I guess, is how the MAGA thinks about that. And they're just removing it and leaving blank walls. And did somebody go and place the sign there that's just the little tiny placard that they left at the foot of the wall underneath the blank space? Slavery was real. Like, they're really erasing the history of it. It might convince people that it was. It would be an easy thing, to convince kids who have no idea that, the whole thing was a fake. It wasn't even real, because how could anybody have imposed that kind of system? That's crazy. We never did that. I bet you could convince kids of that. Anyway, that wasn't the focus of where we're going. But just the rewriting of history. I don't know how they're going to treat this little episode in history, but I guess if they can erase history, it's the least of our worries, I suppose, how they're going to treat this in the history books. FBI search in Georgia tied to criminal inquiry over 2020 election. And I don't think that this story is going to reflect exactly how crazy this stuff is, because, they tend to sane wash things in the New York Times, even though they're getting around to calling him a liar every once in a while. I guess this should be read in context with another article that I have set aside, and you wouldn't I'll have to show you how these things are connected. I have a story from the Daily Beast. Sleepless Trump, 79, they remind you, launches manic 6 a.m. post-a-minute rampage. Now that's bizarre enough, as deserves reportage, but actually I picked that story up along, I think, with a comment on Blue Sky that was pointing to this link, saying, by the way, we're basically doing nothing about this. Like, we'd all just go on with our lives because, we're powerless to invoke the 25th Amendment or whatever. True, we are. We don't have that power, you and I. But we all just sort of, I guess we'll ignore that. Like, shouldn't there be more major day-to-day coverage of the fact that the president is a manic wackadoodle raving at everything under the sun? I mean, we even sane wash the stories about his 6 a.m. rampages. Like, I don't know. Maybe he didn't address it yesterday, so they'll say, well, I'm just reporting the facts. This is what he was raging about. But also, he's also raged about. You're seeing a raid on the voting systems in Fulton County, Georgia, conducted by the FBI, ordered by a guy who is just as likely to rage about, and mean it when he says it, that windmills cause ear cancer in Wales, and our microwave ovens are spying on us, and the Continental Army took over the airports and rammed the ramparts. Like, this guy is off his rocker. And we're like, well, he has a suit and he's the president. And there's just no mechanism for dealing with this. I really think that that's important context to put in it. He was up all night and tweeting insanity while conducting this raid based on insanity. And the whole cabinet is lurking around as if it was a real thing. It's crazy. FBI, so the bland vanilla version of things, FBI search in Georgia tied to criminal inquiry over 2020 election. Oh, yes, right. The reason I wanted to go back was part of his screed at 6 a.m. was saying, by the way, the reason we're doing this is that in his mind, whatever it is inside that orange skull, is saying, by the way, former President Barack Obama is absolutely 100% guilty of treason, and everybody knows what that means and what you can do about that. It's not a rando. It's the guy who says he's the president of the United States. That's what he's doing. So the criminal inquiry, well, what crime are they talking about? You know, the sane-washed version of, well, you might have violated Title 52 of the United States elections law. But the president is saying this goes to treason. It does. More than going to 11. It goes to treason. So, like I said, the cool, calm, collected, sane-washed version of it is FBI search in Georgia tied to criminal inquiry, whatever that might mean, over 2020 election. Is there even, this is one of those ongoing update things, so there's like 500 different versions of the story. What we're covering today, they'll helpfully tell us, the 2020 elections gets the first bullet. FBI agents searched a government building in Fulton County, Georgia, which has been at the center of President Trump's baseless claims that the 2020 election was stolen from him. The warrant, they got one. The warrant sought a number of records. Oh, usually there needs to be a little bit more specificity than that, I would think. Related to the election, Mr. Trump lost, including all physical ballots from the 2020 general election in the county, according to a copy of the warrant viewed by the New York Times. I viewed it myself online, probably maybe from the New York Times. The search escalates the administration's attacks on the integrity of the 2020 election to include a criminal investigation. That's the bullet point, and it says read more, and we will. And another of the things they're covering, equally crazy, we don't know if we'll get to it or not, Marco Rubio testifies to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee yesterday. And who knows whether I understand these things anymore. I read it. I understand. I have reading comprehension. Marco Rubio apparently outlines a process for he's asked about, what about the distribution of this money of these so-called, 500 million barrels of oil, 50 million barrels of oil seized or offered up to us, depending on who you ask, from Venezuela, the sale of which, the proceeds from which are socked away in a bank account in Qatar, and what they're asking. So what are we going to do with this stuff? I think he actually honestly told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he wasn't immediately committed to an insane asylum, that, well, what we're going to do with this money, you see, is the Venezuelans will get some of it. They will submit a budget to us, and we'll approve certain expenditures if we like them, and then we'll give them that money from this account, which is in Qatar. Or the Qataris will give them, I don't know. Who's going to give them the money? It doesn't make any sense. The whole process is crazy, and then was topped off with a heaping dollop of whipped cream crazy. The Venezuelans are going to submit their budget to us, and who's we even, and who's going to approve it? I mean, the people who approve budgets are the guys in Congress. Is that going to them, or is it going to the executive branch? Executive branch. That's bizarre too. I mean, the founders definitely did not have you doing the appropriating, especially for Venezuela, on top of it all. But we might not get to that. All right, what's the FBI story? Let's go to the story the headline we were looking for. Byline, there we go. Devlin Barrett, Richard Fawcett. It's not Fawcett. Is it F-A-U-S-S-E-T? I don't know. I'll ask you, Richard. And Nick Corasaniti. We've struggled with that name before. All right. What's happening? FBI agents executed a search warrant on Wednesday for an election center in Fulton County, Georgia, seeking to seize ballots in a significant escalation of the administration's efforts to investigate a jurisdiction that President Trump has continued to criticize over his 2020 defeat in that state. The move harnesses the investigative power of the Justice Department, which is funded by its appropriations bill, and the FBI behind baseless claims by Mr. Trump and his supporters that the 2020 election was stolen from him. State and local officials and election experts have repeatedly refuted those assertions. The new structure of the New York Times, which I imagine is meant to generate clicks because that's where we live these days, is basically this. I have a story in Instapaper that basically links to, I said I want this story, the one that runs under the headline, FBI search in Georgia tied to criminal inquiry over 2020 election. I click on that, I save it, what does it really bring me to? It really brings me to a endless scrolling page full of links to those stories. But when you click on the link, do you know what I get? I get what I just read you, plus another thing that I have to click that says show more. How about show me what I asked you? I don't know why I have to click, but I guess now this story now has 3 clicks to it. I want one story. I got to click 3 times. They're generating clicks. All right. The rest of the story, which is revealed by clicking, the search warrant authorized FBI agents to search for all physical ballots from the 2020 general election in the county. According to a copy viewed by the New York Times, we read this before, as well as all ballot images produced by scanning ballots, all voter rolls from that year, and all tabulator tapes, which served as a kind of voting machine receipt for election results. Now, I got to tell you, I guess at this point, I've noticed the online discussion of it is, and you might have asked the same question. You mean, so every ballot and every image of a ballot from scanning machines and every tape from the tabulating machines for 2020, do they have this? Because, I mean, as large as the facility is, this thing will have, what do we think they save there? Because the 2020 election results, I guess Trump thinks they're sitting there, not results, but the ballots, and the 22 and the 24. How many, plus of course any state elections, I guess that they are also overseeing. Like, it's a big facility, but do we really think that all the ballots from 2020 are there? And by the way, so I said the online discussion of it is people pointing out the statute that's cited in the search warrant. I mean, it's a correct statute. They do save materials from prior elections, but for apparently they're required by law to preserve them for 22 months. It's been, somebody did the numbers on it, 60 months since the 2020 election. Is that right? 12, 24, 4 years. So, yeah, we're getting on in years. So I guess maybe that's right. I don't know what's still there. Maybe if it's there, I guess the warrant entitles you to seize it, but what might happen is they get a warrant to go get the 2020 election records, and they go there, and it may just be a stunt. They get there, and there's nothing. Why? What happened to it? Well, we got rid of them after 22 months, just like the law says we were supposed to do. Aha! Now we've got you in a cover-up. No, it's not a cover-up. We were supposed to destroy these things. We can't have them sitting around forever. We don't have the capacity for them. And who cares anyway? That election is settled. It's over with. And you might have pointed out, this stuff was available to you in 2020. And who was the president in 2020? You were. And who did you have on your team? Kash Patel. He wasn't the FBI director at the time. And it wasn't that they weren't urging Trump to seize the ballots at that point. They were. Everybody just thought that was universally regarded as insane. And Patsy Baloney was on hand to stop you from doing it. But I don't know why you gave in to him. Anyway, this is what we're talking about. So I don't even know. The magistrate judge, I guess maybe the approach is, this has been proven to you 10,000 times already. You want to go through another public pummeling over this? Fine. Go seize whatever ballots there are involved in the 2020 election, except there are none. But also very weird. The New York Times, I think, included these pictures were photos of FBI agents at the raid, in addition to Tulsi Gabbard. One of them in all his tactical gear and his vest and everything, entering the building carrying giant power saws. I think like one guy had a circular saw, one guy had a jigsaw. Like, what are you sawing? I'm not sure what kind of search this is going to be. The only thing I can guess is they think they want to saw the locks off of something. Maybe there's something padlocked. In all honesty, it's very likely they would be given the keys, but they'll want the dramatic breaking of the locks instead. But it's going to end up being like Al Capone's vault. We broke open the lock to a box that we thought had the 2020 ballots in it, but now they're missing. And so they'll say, we'll do this again. Now they're missing. Right. even Trump and his people, as technically adept as they are, they're not, will have to click to get to their soundboard so that when they can say they're missing, that comes up automatically. So I don't know what the magistrate is thinking here, but it does say that the warrant was signed by a magistrate judge, Catherine M. Salinas. And the warrant said the records were sought as part of an investigation into possible violations of a federal law against destruction of election-related records. There you go. And another statute that makes it a crime to knowingly procure fraudulent voter registration or fraudulent votes. I mean, it is a crime to do that. They just didn't. And if they did, the ability to prove it through ballots was never really an actual thing. It probably wouldn't prove anything. And, of course, those ballots are gone. But there you have it. Violation of federal law against destruction of election-related records, unless, of course, they're destroyed in compliance with that same law. The law says they have to be there for 22 months. They're not going to be there, probably. And they're going to say that's the crime, except it's not the crime because 22 months have passed. In an unusual twist, that is an unusual twist, isn't it?
That's unusual!
The prosecutor listed on the warrant is not from Georgia, but is the interim, not acting, interim. Can I commission John Lovitz to say interim? I don't know why he would, so I'd have to pay for it. Maybe I can get that on Cameo. That is not worth doing. In an unusual twist, the prosecutor listed on the warrant is not from Georgia, but an interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of, anyone want to guess? Missouri. Missouri? Why? I don't know. Thomas Albus. Dumbledore. Thomas Albus. That's his full name. It is unclear what would connect prosecutors in Missouri to Mr. Trump's longstanding complaints about how the 2020 election in Georgia was conducted. And the answer is Thomas Albus will sign anything for Donald Trump. I guess he's an election denier. Or, I don't really know anything about Thomas Albus, so we'll do it like Mark Warner did. There are two possible explanations. One, he's a total Trumper and he'll sign anything that Donald Trump asks him to. Two is he has been drugged and tied up and put in a closet somewhere and only receives food if he'll sign things. Now, why? I don't know why that one would happen, but why Donald Trump would need the guy from Missouri to do it or force the guy from Missouri to do it, I don't know. But the best possible explanation, the real explanation probably is that Albus is just one of those loyalist election deniers. Why the magistrate judge didn't say, I don't understand why you're using, maybe it doesn't matter that it's an interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri doing it. And I guess ultimately you could certainly grant that. Like if you're a duly appointed federal prosecutor, I mean, the crime that they're trying to describe certainly affected the Eastern District of Missouri as well by affecting the outcome allegedly of the 2020 election. I don't know what to tell you. I guess it's workable because the magistrate signed the thing. It's just another aspect of its weirdness. And it's so crazy that it's almost sane washing all by itself to say, well, it's an unusual twist. It's not clear what would connect the two, as opposed to, this isn't even on this planet. This never happens. We don't do this. By Wednesday afternoon, about a dozen agents had descended on Fulton County Election Hub, the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center. Does that translate into FCEHOC? Nah, can't make anything out of that one. The vast hangar-like building south of downtown Atlanta houses the county elections office and is where votes are counted on election night. So I'm sure they think that's the locus of the crime. But, and I guess maybe the size of the building leads them to believe, sure, they could have all the ballots from every effing election ever. The action comes a month after the Trump administration filed a civil lawsuit against Fulton County. Civil lawsuit, right? We're going to have criminals, bargle. It's a civil lawsuit seeking to seize and inspect old ballots from the 2020 election. Wednesday's search broadens the administration's attack on the integrity of that race to include a criminal investigation. Not long after Mr. Trump vowed his administration would charge people with crimes over the vote 6 years ago. So there's a civil case filed, but they went to a judge and said, by the way, we might also file some criminal charges. But in order to do that, we need evidence that we need a warrant to seize and saws. The search signals a more aggressive approach. Yeah, that's unusually aggressive approach from the Justice Department, which is funded, in its fights with state and local officials over election data. Maybe we should do a rescission of the DOJ's budget. Days earlier, Attorney General Pam Bondi, which is a strange and unusual thing to say, in a letter to Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, again, what? Where? Suggested that the administration would reduce its immigration enforcement operation there stop killing people, if the state turned over its complete and unredacted voter rolls to the department, among other demands. And I know everybody's trying to fit all of those facts and demands into a theory of what they're actually doing there. And it's not a bad theory, given that there's really no connection whatsoever between immigration enforcement and the voter rolls. If you think there are non-citizens voting in Minnesota, you're largely wrong. I mean, does some people ever try to register and for some reason people get registered and then they go and they try to cast a vote? Yeah, like 6 over the nationwide over the past 20 years. Not an outcome determinative number of people. But they love to latch onto that and then overreach, you might say, in their investigation of it. So anyway, that's a whole separate scandal in itself. We are terrorizing Minneapolis in particular, and the environs, but that and many other cities across the country. And if you want us to stop terrorizing you, give us your voter rolls. Like, most people are just not going to make the connection that makes that make sense. The administration's intensifying investigation and litigation targeting elections, which are historically the purview of individual states, for you Constitution lovers, have raised concerns among Democrats, voting experts, and some Republicans. Even Republicans are mad about this. Wednesday's search only heightened those fears. Mo Ivory, a Democratic commissioner for Fulton County, said in an Instagram post, everything's breaking news on social media now, that the FBI's first warrant was flawed and that agents returned with a second warrant later in the day to collect hundreds of boxes of old ballots. So I guess some of those ballots still are around. Why, I'm not sure, but I guess you could. What if Fulton County people are saying, you know what? Out of an abundance of caution, if it will settle your mind to show you a 15th time that you're crazy, we'll do it. Except really, honestly, I'd almost say the better route is to just say, we're done here. No, we're destroying the ballots, which is perfectly permissible, and go F yourself. But apparently they decided not to do this. So there you go. I think that's very interesting. That's funny that, of course, the first warrant was flawed. Trump and paperwork, man. I'm telling you, they can't even get a crazy warrant done right. Ms. Ivory said she and her colleagues were determining a legal plan to stop this. She called the search an effort by Mr. Trump to create chaos before the 2026 congressional elections. He could have waited a little while if that's what he wanted to do. This is an attempt to take your vote away, she said. This is all about November 2026. Josh McLaurin, a Democratic state senator who arrived at the scene on Wednesday afternoon, called the search extremely alarming and an order from on high to try to disrupt Fulton County's election administration just because Donald Trump is still mad that he lost. Adding to the federal presence on the ground, we finally do get around to this, in Fulton County was Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. A senior administration official said that Ms. Gabbard, I got to get ready for my music, that Ms. Gabbard, quote, has a pivotal role in election security and protecting the integrity of our elections against interference, including operations targeting voting systems, databases, and election infrastructure. Maybe yes, maybe no, certainly worth revamping. But yeah, once again, the big pivot that the Donald Trump administration has made here is convincing people that immigration is a war and that every election has foreign interference in it. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here, too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of. And by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got to keep reading this crazy-ass story, although sometimes I think we'd be better served talking about the commentary that falls in along with it on social media, which really gets to the heart of it. But I don't know, I guess it's also somewhat important, one, to see what the dry, sane-washing reporting has to say about things and point out the places in which there's sort of glossing over exactly what's happening here, and then add the commentary, both our own and other people's commentary along the way. But the crazy stuff is coming. We mentioned that Tulsi Gabbard is there and that their excuse is that she, as DNI, has a pivotal role in election security and protecting the integrity of our elections against interference. And I would say that the Director of National Intelligence, yeah, I mean, I guess whether the interference is foreign or domestic, I suppose it's possible that you could make that claim. But this, too, I think, has to be part of a big reorg. We can't have... Well, I understand that election integrity might be something that we want to claim is an all-of-government effort, I guess. But we really need to streamline who gets to put a finger in this pie. But it's just, well, nobody should. I mean, you don't want any fingers in your pie. But we recognize that that's sort of the nature of our system of governance here. But I mean, certainly it doesn't require her personal presence there. The only reason that she is there is she too is a conspiracy nut. She wants to be a part of the excitement and be on hand and claim a portion of the craziness that will eventually make her a scapegoat when this backfires against Trump and he looks for somebody to blame. I don't know. I guess when Melania 2 comes out, whenever that happens. Anyway, right. So the claim here is, once again, that ICE has a national security role because immigration equals invasion. And now the DNI and Homeland Security and everybody else have a role in election administration because we lost. And so that must mean that someone must have interfered. And that's it's a national security issue for us to have free and fair elections. So we need to send the craziest idiots possible to screw up those free and fair elections from happening again in order to have free and fair elections. That makes sense, right? Fulton County, which is largely non-white and voted overwhelmingly for Joseph R. Biden Jr., perhaps you've heard of him, quickly became a nexus of Mr. Trump's effort to cling to power after he lost the 2020 election. It has remained central to a host of conspiracy theories about that election that have persisted, animating an activist base in the state. After leaving office, Mr. Trump and some of his allies were criminally charged, with election interference in Georgia. And the former president was booked at the Fulton County Jail, in case you were trying to remember, why does he hate Fulton County again? Around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, Sally Grubbs, and I think it's Sally, it's, by the way, spelling Salleigh. Very interesting. I like it. Sally Grubbs, a Republican member, I don't like it. A Republican member of the Georgia State Election Board, emerged from the building. She said the activity was, quote, on the clerk's side, unquote, of the building. I didn't know they divided it that way. Fine. Is she reasonable or is she a crazy ass? Quote, it's been a long time in coming, I think, and getting a lot of the answers that need to be given. Okay, crazy ass. That's Ms. Grubbs, who has previously shared doubts about the 2020 election, one might say, and who once followed a truck that she believed was bringing ballots to be shredded, which, by the way, is something I guess that after 22 months you can do to ballots. I don't know what that story is about. It is linked here. I'm a little curious. Linked to the Atlantic, which is amazing because that's not the New York Times. How could they possibly link to someone else's reporting? Anyway, in case you were wondering, yes, Fulton County, largely non-white. Sally Grubbs, is she a member of the state board? So guess what? They found some white people elsewhere in the state. Sally Grubbs is it. Here's the story. Isaac Arnsdorf wrote for The Atlantic back in April of 2024. Trump has transformed the GOP all the way down. Sally Grubbs went from keyboard warrior to local GOP chair, and she's not the only one, and now she's on the state board of elections. So, yeah, basically a recruitment and elevation drive for crazy asses that they can find online and turn into officials later on, which helps explain why orange guy in suit who thinks whales are getting ear cancer and ramparts were being rammed gets to, dispatch the FBI to prove his pet theory. Anyway, about 90 minutes later, Ms. Grubbs was spotted inside the elections buildings with Janice Johnston, another Republican member of the state election board. The pair were complaining to Fulton County officials that they could not reach the area where the search was ostensibly taking place, according to David Worley, a Democrat and former member of the election board who was also on the scene. But it's our subpoena, Ms. Johnston repeatedly said, according to Mr. Worley. Do I hear this correctly? We asked for a subpoena and a search warrant, and now the FBI is on site conducting that search, but they won't let us in to rifle things and contaminate the crime scene. Honestly, Kash Patel's FBI is doing just fine contaminating the crime scene and the crime scheme. But, since when? I made a complaint. Why won't the police let me do the searching? Because, no. Ms. McLaurin, who are we talking about? I've lost track of everybody here. McLaurin is who? Mr. McLaurin, I'm sorry. Mr. McLaurin is... I don't know where he was identified, but it's been a long time we've been reading. So there we are. Josh McLaurin, Democratic state senator, who was on scene. Mr. McLaurin said he had been in the same room on Wednesday, I guess in the same room when they were complaining about why they weren't allowed to do the searching. And then at one point he heard Ms. Johnston say, quote, they should just take the 700 boxes away. Presumably referring to the boxes from 2020, which I guess are there. Although, I guess maybe that's the boxes that were on the truck where they photographed Tulsi Gabbard in a truck for some reason. A spokesman for Brad Raffensperger, remember him? Georgia's Secretary of State, could not be reached for comment. The office was not given advance notice that the FBI would be conducting a search, according to two people familiar with the situation, even though they gave Trump advance notice that the FBI was going to search Mar-a-Lago, but no such courtesy for Georgia. A week earlier, the FBI director, Kash Patel, forced out the head of the Bureau's Atlanta office, though it is unclear whether the ouster was related to the search. But come on, I would add as commentary. The administration has long signaled its interest in the ballots from 6 years ago. In October, Harmeet K. Dillon, a conservative activist who has been converted into running the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, subpoenaed Fulton County's 2020 ballots, but the county resisted turning them over. It's also a linked article there. It would be interesting to see what their reasoning is. As part of its civil lawsuit in December, the Justice Department accused county officials of violating the Civil Rights Act by not handing them over. So you see how, once again, another pivoting act here, turning the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department into a machine for grievance addressing of the 2020 election. If you don't give us the ballots, that's a civil rights violation. Why? How? I don't know. The point is, the law allows me, the head of the Civil Rights Division, to say what is and isn't something of interest and possible civil rights violation, even if I lose this case. In a separate lawsuit, the Justice Department sued the state of Georgia, seeking copies of its private voter list, which is what they're demanding out in Minnesota as well, right? Which contains personal information such as driver's licenses and partial social security numbers. Appearing on stage at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland last week, to bring another crazy thread into it, Mr. Trump vowed to arrest people in connection with what he claimed was voter fraud in 2020. And you can see why Switzerland was so interested, right? I don't know. I mean, he just gives the same rambling speech wherever he goes, and everybody says, it's his prerogative. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did, he said. And again, I don't know. Maybe. I know he thinks so. Trump and paperwork. What if they can't get an indictment? What if they can't get an arrest warrant issued for any of these people? Because too many people know that this makes no sense. Some discrepancies in Fulton County's recount process did emerge after the 2020 election, but the state's Republican leadership ultimately affirmed Mr. Biden's victory there. Mr. Trump then pressured Georgia's top elections officials to, quote, find him enough votes to overturn his loss in the state. You heard that phone call, including his gas attack during that phone call as well. In particular, Mr. Trump and his allies have repeatedly zeroed in on footage from State Farm Arena, one of the vote counting sites in the county during the 2020 election, that appears to show some election workers running ballots through scanners more than once. Why would they do something like that? Well, the governor, the Secretary of State, and top elections officials in Georgia, all Republicans, said that the footage did not show anything nefarious. The standard operating procedure on a high-capacity scanner is that if there is a misread, you take that batch, press a button, delete the batch, and then take that batch and put it back in again. Gabriel Sterling, the chief operating officer in the office of the Georgia Secretary of State, said at the time. We also know if there had been multiple scans, there would be a lot more votes than there were ballots. But that didn't happen. Trump still runs around saying, yeah, I know, and there were. No, there weren't. But despite repeated explanations from top Republican elections officials, and at this point, this is why it's like, don't even destroy the ballots. I know that they'll point at that and say, see, it's a cover up. But then at least people will get bored and tired of saying that. It doesn't matter what you show them, ever. They don't care. They're just going to say, the votes came from Mars. Sure. But despite repeated explanations from top Republican election officials, Fulton County has remained an obsession among conservative election activists who still believe the county counted fraudulent ballots to swing the election to Mr. Biden. In July, conservative members of the state election board passed a resolution calling on the Secretary of State and other officials to seek assistance from the Justice Department, quote, to take any action necessary to bring a prompt resolution to these issues. It was resolved 6 years ago, including obtaining all necessary voting records and documents. In November, Steve Bannon implored crazy-ass Ed Martin, an official at the Justice Department, they just sort of put that out there, but who has promoted false theories about elections in the past, to send U.S. Marshals to Fulton County to claim ballots. But we know who Ed Martin is, and I guess they can't fit his entire record in there, so they just link to, I don't know, maybe it's just a story about Bannon imploring Ed Martin. But Ed Martin, we know, we've heard a lot about. I don't know. I guess we last saw him standing weirdly in a trench coat in the middle of summer outside of Letitia James's house. That Ed Martin? Oh, he's been implored, has he? We have to adjudicate 2020. It's the railhead of so much of the problem in the country, Mr. Bannon said on an episode of his podcast, War Room. Mr. Martin said that along with Kurt Olson, a lawyer in the White House, he and, quote, a couple of others had been working on election integrity. Oh, I didn't know that. And signaled that Fulton County was in their sights. At this point, it's 4.5. They say 4.5 years later, and they're fighting to keep them secret, Mr. Martin said. I guess that means that he might have typed it in on X or something. 4.5. He couldn't find the 1/2 button. At this point, it's 4.5 years later. They're fighting to keep them secret, Mr. Martin said. The clerk has them supposedly down the hall, and they won't let us see them to review them. If they want to prove the election was fine, show it to us. We've raised enough serious concerns. You have not. You've raised no serious concerns. You're crazy. But once again, we're going to go through this. Okay, fine. Take a look and prove it to yourself. Except they're just not going to reach a normal person's conclusion. Sorry. I guess at this point, maybe I will see if I can read you the Daily Beast article. Well, you know what? It's just a short little blurb. Sleepless Trump 79 launches manic 6 a.m. post-a-minute rampage. Does it have any? Yeah, all right. There they are. There's the election garbage. Donald Trump has kicked his morning off bright and early with an almost post-a-minute rampage on Truth Social. The president fired off almost 31 posts around 6 a.m. Thursday on everything from his prospective invasion of Greenland to his long-running gripes against Barack Obama and his thoroughly debunked claims that the 2020 election was rigged. Trump won big, Trump wrote of those results. Crooked election. Much of the MAGA leader's early morning vitriol appears to have been prompted by the FBI's raid on Wednesday. It's prompted by the raid, really? Like, I was just standing around here minding my own business when the FBI out of nowhere raids it and that I'm reminded, that's right, it was all crooked. Like, you didn't order the raid. Prompted by the raid? Much of the MAGA leaders' early morning vitriol appears to have been prompted by the FBI's raid, which he ordered, of an election office in Fulton County, Georgia, in search of evidence of widespread voter fraud nearly 6 years ago. Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's director of national intelligence, was present at the site of the search. Tulsi plays no games. Liberals are terrified. This is not Trump? Okay. Liberals are terrified at this site. A post by MAGA influencer Eric Daugherty, reshared by the president, reads, expose the fraud, show the people Trump was right, or show the people, comma, Trump was right. Okay, this is a developing story, we are advised by the Daily Beast, and I guess it is, but we're really just amazed that this is even allowed. I guess the next craziest story of the moment was the one I mentioned about Marco Rubio, the New York Times covering this one. Let's open it up and have a look. Rubio says Venezuela will submit monthly budget to White House. Monthly, not annually, monthly. Democrats sharply questioned the plan, including the role of Qatar in managing an account funded by the sale of Venezuelan oil. None of this makes any sense. The illegalities are just too numerous to name at this point. By the way, before I move on to this, I have to point out that I said there was some other commentary about how ludicrous the FBI raid thing is. Asha Rangappa pointing out, she's got Trump's Truth Social post linking to something he found on X from an account called The Skiff, which is supposed to give him national security type credentials or something. And she's just asking outright, is this real? Because if so, I think I called it with 12 minutes to spare. I'm not exactly sure. I guess maybe this is 12 minutes before he retweeted this Skiff thing. was her theory about just how crazy this whole thing is. And I guess this is her explanation of it, which she appends to this. So my connect the dots here is that there will be some allegation that there was foreign interference in the voting, Hugo Chavez, Italian satellites, etc., hence why DNI is involved, making it a NatSec national security issue that they will use to justify doing something crazy / illegal in November. She also holds up as a reference point here the Carl Quintanilla post here that reads, tells us why, or that Tulsi Gabbard is seen on site. I guess this was the caption of the photo of her. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard speaks on the phone while standing inside a vehicle loaded with boxes outside the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center after the FBI executed a search warrant there. So, she supposes that, yep, this is connected to all of the Sidney Powell lunacy that Patsy Baloney chucked her out of the Oval Office for spewing in December of 2020. Seize the ballots, seize the voting machines, Italian satellites. And the Skiff comment has more of the same. Maria Zack testified about the stolen 2020 election operation connected to Obama when he diverted $400 million from the infamous pallets of cash sent to Iran, funneling through the Dubai embassy. Which embassy? The U.S. embassy in Dubai? Maybe to operatives in Italy and Merrill Lynch in Geneva, Switzerland. Come on. In return, Italian officials at Leonardo SPA used military satellites to help hack U.S. voting machines, flipping votes from Trump to Biden using CIA-developed tools like Hammer and Scorecard. What? Along with numerous other methods of fraud and manipulation, China reportedly coordinated the whole operation, providing the I sound like Jerry Seinfeld now. Providing the tech backbone and bribes to corrupt Americans. The CIA oversaw it. The FBI covered it up, all to install Biden as a puppet. This is a global election fraud cartel and the real threat against American democracy and the rest of the world. Who was in charge of the CIA and the FBI at the time? It was 2020. It was Donald Trump. Why did it happen? Deep state. He wasn't in control of the whole thing. Yargle bargle. I mean, holy mackerel. Wow. And, by the way, as other people have pointed out here, who gave me this? Shaboy Boy, and Yitsky on Blue Sky saying, the plan Obama executed was to rig the vote tabulation system while he was president, but not use it to keep Trump out of office in 2016. Obama, you see, he played the long game where you don't cheat until 2020. And then you unplug the system again before 2024. It's a little unrealistic. Anyhow, I don't know. So another unrealistic scenario where Marco Rubio appears before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Michael Crowley reporting on it for the New York Times. What about this monthly budget submission from Venezuela? I don't know. Venezuela's interim government has agreed, I guess, or at least Rubio says they did, to submit a monthly, quote, budget to the Trump administration, which will release money from an account funded by the country's oil sales and initially managed by Qatar for no real reason, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said out loud on Wednesday. But the plan drew sharp questions, from skeptical Democrats. Those stupid skeptical Democrats. Why are they questioning how come Qatar has Venezuela's money and we're going to give it to them if we like their budget? I have questions. The plan drew sharp questions from skeptical Democrats, and Mr. Rubio conceded it was a novel and that it was novel and hastily designed. That seems obvious. The role of Qatar, a Middle Eastern country thousands of miles from Venezuela, whose ruler has won President Trump's favor, it's a good note, drew particular criticism from Democrats who questioned its legality and transparency. Mr. Rubio detailed the plan during an appearance before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It was Mr. Rubio's first public appearance to Congress since American forces captured Venezuela's leader, their president, Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd and an opportunity to clarify U.S. policy toward the country. But that didn't happen. Many questions are sure to persist, however. Mr. Rubio assured senators, for instance, that the Trump administration had established a very respectful and productive line of communication with the government of Delcy Rodriguez, a close ally of Mr. Maduro, who assumed power after his removal. I mean, I guess we could point out she was the vice president. So, yeah. As we make it sound like this weird, exotic arrangement. As a result, he said, the Trump administration does not, quote, intend or expect to use military force against Venezuela at any time, except the one that we used it in. Yet Mr. Rubio took a more threatening tone in a written opening statement that he submitted to the committee but did not deliver orally, making brief extemporaneous remarks instead. The written statement warned that the United States was, quote, prepared to use force to ensure maximum cooperation, unquote, from Ms. Rodriguez's governments, quote, if other methods fail. So interestingly, he submits written testimony that says, yeah, we'll use force, then gave oral testimony saying, we will not use force at any time, unless, of course, we do. That cooperation is largely focused on Venezuela's lucrative oil industry. Mr. Trump has previously said that the United States will control Venezuela's oil and, quote, run the country. But Mr. Rubio provided more details. Really? You think? The United States will help Venezuela's government fund basic public services by dispersing proceeds from the sale of Venezuelan oil that is subject to U.S. sanctions, Mr. Rubio said. By the way, the United States government has no intention of using U.S. government money to fund basic public services in the United States, but you can probably trust them to get it right in Venezuela with stolen oil money. He said that the approach was necessary because of a fiscal crunch in Venezuela and that it was a short-term mechanism not meant to become permanent. How else might Venezuela have funded these operations? What about selling the oil that they owned and using the money for that? No, that's a stupid solution. We should seize the oil, then sell it, then tell everybody that we're going to use it to fund social services there. That makes so much sense. Why not have us involved? They needed money in the immediacy. Okay, he does speak English, right? They needed money in the immediacy to fund the police officers, the sanitation workers, and the daily operations of government, Mr. Rubio added. I mean, it's just a little bit weird that nobody says, we stole the means of doing that from them, but we might give it back to them if we think they're going to actually do that with the money. They have pledged to use a substantial amount of those funds to purchase medicine and equipment directly from the United States. That's the difference. In an arrangement that he acknowledged was unusual, he did acknowledge it. Unusual! Mr. Rubio said the funds would initially be held in an offshore account, controlled by Qatar. Not that it's in Qatar and controlled by the United States, but in Qatar and controlled by Qatar. Which, I mean, I don't know if you can avoid it. Everything in Qatar is controlled by Qatar because, one, it's Qatar, and two, it's a monarchy. Well, anyway, all of this it would be controlled by Qatar before eventual transferal to a U.S. Treasury account. Maybe. I understand it's novel, but it's the best we could come up with in the short term, Mr. Rubio. I said, that's not a great answer. He said a third-party account was necessary because of U.S. financial sanctions on Venezuela and because U.S. creditors to whom the country owes money, mainly from its seizure of American energy company assets roughly 20 years ago, could otherwise make legal claims on the funds that would complicate their disbursement. So what's really interesting, he's also stealing this money from American oil companies, and that seems weird. Okay. So yeah, it's a little crazy. There's more to it. I can tell you that, except that we are out of time. And I did mean to tell you about, but I guess I'll wait for tomorrow, more about the discombobulator, which apparently must have gone off when Trump was cleaning it in the White House. That apparently now it is said, I guess they're trying to figure out, well, what the hell is this discombobulator? And has it got anything to do with the Havana syndrome thing that we heard so much about years ago? Or is it the sort of sonic weapons that even American police and security forces have now got access to, because there are claims that they are using, remember those LRAD sonic cannons that they, I think they hauled out of storage during some of the last mass protest movements. But now, apparently, allegations being made that they're being put into use in Minneapolis, among other places. Anyway, this story about talking to Marco Rubio gets crazier and crazier as you go along. Some specific questions being posed to him by different Democratic senators. I don't know whether there's any Republican senators on the record here just saying, oh yeah, this is totally fine. No worries. Look away. I see Chris Murphy here. I see Brian Schatz. I see Lloyd Doggett making comments about it as well from over on the House side. It just gets worse and worse. There's Trump and paperwork, man. That money is going to disappear, folks. And why American oil companies aren't upset about it, I do not know. They just, I don't know. They're signed on to the agenda, I guess. Maybe they think they'll get drips and drabs, and maybe they'll end up with the assets in their hand at the end of all of this, whenever that may come, whenever the cheeseburger of destiny decides to strike. All right, time to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. He'll be covering Trump's psychotic meltdown overnight as well, and giving you more insight into that and other stories that we may have missed.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Yeah, as always, lots more. For instance, here we are in the age of MAGA. Officials confirm a tuberculosis outbreak at a San Francisco private school. That in addition to the rampage of measles still going on in South Carolina and elsewhere. We'll see you tomorrow for yet more